Rob, how's it going?
Really good, Stacey. In 48 hours, I'm going to be on a plane to Seattle, so life couldn't be better.
Oh, very, very exciting. And I'm so excited not just to speak in abstracts about what this team will look like, but to actually talk about a matchup as we head into week one against the San Francisco 49ers. So even though we have questions about the outlook, let's start with week one. How do you like this matchup for Seattle? They are underdogs heading into week one.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that they're underdogs because the Niners have had a lot of health issues over the last few weeks. To me, they feel a little bit like the Seahawks were in 2017. A lot of people see them as contenders, but maybe their peak years are in the past. I feel like the Seahawks, having finished with the same number of wins as the Rams last year, deserve a bit more respect in this division. I think the Seahawks are going to win the NFC West. So I think this is a good opportunity to make a bit of a statement this weekend. I think it's also really important the Seahawks get a win at home. You know, that home form, winning games at Lumen Field's been an issue for some time. So starting off with a win against the Niners, I think that's really important.
What are you looking forward to seeing the most? Me personally, I told Stacey that I was eager to see this offense. I want to see what it looks like. She is soulless. She says she feels nothing about the offense. It's all about the defense.
I did say I'm currently not feeling away. Like my emotions haven't been stirred.
Yeah, me, I'm all offense. I want to see what it looks like. What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I want to see this offensive line playing the way that it did against the Chiefs. When you're watching that game, and Abe Lucas looked fantastic. You know, if he can play at that level all of this season, he'll be one of the best right tackles in the NFL. You've got Gray Zabel there. Looks like he's going to have an immediate impact as a rookie. Anthony Bradford looks better. Sundell at center fits in really well when he was playing against the Chiefs. So can they recreate that? What are these rookies going to be able to do? I'm really excited to watch Elijah Arroyo. I know a lot of the attention, quite rightly, has been on Torrey Horton, but you know, Arroyo is a player who the GM John Schneider was saying, listen, if he'd have been completely healthy, he would have been a top 20 type talent in the draft. I think he's a quality player. He can potentially develop over time as a receiving threat to be somebody who could be Seattle's answer to George Kittle in this kind of offense. So I'm interested to see what he's going to be able to do. The running game, I'm a big Zach Charbonnet fan. I'm glad that he's had a really good offseason. Obviously, Ken Walker's extremely talented as well. And then you've got Sam Darnold, who has got a point to prove because he had a really good season last year. Statistically, I think he deserves more respect for that. I think perhaps people are lingering just a little bit too much on those final two games. But if he has a bad start to this season, people will point again to the way that last season ended and say that he's not going to be the answer for Seattle. So he needs to start quickly. So I think there's a lot of interesting storylines with the offense. Hopefully they're going to get off to a good start under Clint Kubiak. And if they do, paired with this defense, the Seahawks can be a real threat in the NFC.
Kind of expanding on that thought process. It's just an extension of that answer. But Rob, you said that you're favoring Seattle in the NFC West, and the majority of analysts, I should say like odds makers, are favoring the Rams. I can kind of see why, but why do you think the Seahawks have the edge over the other three teams?
Well, look, as I mentioned with the Niners, I think they are a team that have had a great run with this head coach and with this core of talent. But Trent Williams is another year older. Can Christian McCaffrey stay healthy? Fred Ward is another year older. These are still quality players, but they can't just keep going on forever. And I think the start of the regression occurred last year, and we're going to see a continuation of that. For the Rams, how healthy is Matt Stafford? How healthy is Matt Stafford's left tackle? They're relying a lot on young players like Jared Verse to take another step forward as a sophomore in the NFL. I'm just not convinced that the Rams are as good as everybody says. They've obviously played very well in the playoffs, handily beat the Vikings, did a very good job against the Eagles in the snow. But Matt Stafford didn't play very well last season. And yes, they won the division. I think Seattle threw it away with some of the games they lost. That Giants game is a classic example at home. So I just don't think the Rams are as good as everybody's making out. And then the Cardinals, they seem to have this trendy pick like every single year. Yeah, this is going to be the year that the Cardinals take a step. I don't think they've got enough difference makers on defense. Kyler Murray's a decent quarterback. He can make things happen. They've got a fantastic tight end. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. will probably be better as a second-year player. But have they got enough difference makers on defense? I think the Seahawks got the best combination of talent and coaching to win this division. I think the question for me is, how far can this team go in the playoffs when they get there? Because I expect them to win the division.
How do you feel about this offensive line? Obviously, you mentioned Zabel. You bring him over. I was expecting them to make a bigger move when it comes to adding a veteran to the situation. I think the scheme helps them, but just your thoughts on that whole situation.
Look, for years they've been talking about we want to be physical. We want to bully opponents. We want to be tough up front. It never happened. They looked like a finesse team. And then against the Chiefs, the way that they're running the ball, and you just couldn't stop it. And those offensive linemen, it was very aggressive. To me, it looks like for the first time in years, they have a group of young players that can grow together. The Seahawks have had a problem year after year. It's a different center. It's a different right guard. This player's injured. This player's going to move on, and they're going to have to try and replace them. They need to create 5 players who can spend 2, 3, 4 years together. And maybe you're going to have to replace the odd one because he gets injured or he moves on in free agency. But you still have to have a base number of players who are there every single year to build chemistry with this offensive line. They look like they've got an opportunity to do that this year. The only concern is probably the depth. They're very young. It's not a coincidence they were looking at Dalton Risner, who's gone to the Cincinnati Bengals. They could probably do with a bit more experience behind the likes of Zabel and Bradford. They've got a bit of depth at center, and I think that's why Sundell's going to move over to guard if they have an injury there, and then Oluwatimi will play at center. But it's the depth issue in the interior line that is a bit of a concern. Apart from that, they've got all the makings to take a huge step forward this year, and that's what Seahawks fans have been asking for a number of years.
So excited for week 1 to get here. It's going to be our first real look at this team, starters against starters in the regular season. But heading back to the preseason, we did get 3 peeks at what they could look like, or, versions of what we could see. Rob, as you know, most people kind of brush off the preseason. I don't care. You're just seeing backups. These games don't matter. But then there are a lot of analysts like you that do try to come through and say, what can I learn? Is there anything of value I can take from here? Was there anything that you felt like, I think I can fairly take this and feel excited about it, or analyze it, or kind of stuck with you?
Well, everything about the offensive performance against the Kansas City Chiefs, that is the way that they're going to have to play. If this offense is going to work as designed, they're going to have to run the ball. Perhaps not as prolific as that, because if they run the ball like that every week, they're going to win the Super Bowl or the cancer. But if they can get into sort of that average where they can consistently get over 100 yards. Like there was a long stretch where, there wasn't a Seahawks running back who could get to 100 yards. It felt like a real struggle. At times last year, it felt like they weren't even trying to run the football. It was, hey, let's just hope that Geno Smith can win the day and that everything else around him is going to work. So if they can take that pressure off Sam Darnold, that will give him a chance to play complementary football as a passer. It does feel as if the Shanahan system, that's when it works its most effective way. That's how a Jimmy Garoppolo can take Kyle Shanahan to a Super Bowl. And, Brock Purdy's a good quarterback, but he's not Patrick Mahomes, he's not Joe Burrow, he's not Josh Allen. He's been to a Super Bowl as well. You do need to have that running game. So when you watch the Chiefs' performance on the offense, that's what you want to see. And then I think the other thing that I really learned from the preseason was just how together everybody was. When you have the backup nose tackle forcing a safety with a great move, and the entire starting defense is running onto the field and acting like they've won a playoff game, that to me just represented how everyone's connected, everybody's completely bought in. We saw that with attendance during OTAs, the amount of just total lack of distraction during training camp. It feels like every other team's got a little bit of drama going on, some more than others, like Dallas. But in Seattle there was none of that. Everybody is focused on getting better, improving this team, driving things forward. I think that was a big example as to why this team's going to take a step forward, and they are one to watch in the NFC this year.
Rob, it's been a Seahawk love fest for the past 8 minutes. Talk about all their potential and that good stuff. What are you concerned about? There has to be something that you're scratching your head trying to figure out if there's going to be success or not.
I think one of the big concerns is the depth at linebacker. You've got 2 linebackers there who, if Tyrese Knight and Ernest Jones can play every week, you're going to be very comfortable with that. But are they going to be able to play every week? Ernest Jones has had a surgery this year. He's had some injury issues. Tyrese Knight, obviously, there's been a bit of mystery as to what's been happening there with his health. If one of those 2 players goes down, what happens then? Because we saw the defense last year when they had 2 other linebackers on the field. It didn't work. The whole defense kind of fell away after the first 3 games. If they lose one or both of these linebackers, is the same thing going to happen again? They have brought some other linebackers in, but when you're picking players that have just been cut who can't even make a 53-man roster, you're not necessarily going to find the solution there. So if they do have an injury, do they then have to go and trade for somebody else? How expensive is that going to be? Is there going to be another Ernest Jones just sort of sat waiting for you if you have to go and trade for someone later on this year? So I think that is one concern for me. The depth at linebacker. I think there are perhaps a few other positions like cornerback, maybe if you get a couple of injuries there. Can this defensive line really elevate itself And can one of these pass rushers be the main man within this scheme that you can rely on as a constant source of pressure and sacks? I think they're the kind of things that I'm looking for. But to be honest, the linebacker one is the one that's the main thing for me. It's can those two guys stay healthy?